Hey guys, Pete here. Today's Game of Thrones Season 8 video will be about the questions I have heading into the series finale. This is it. This is really it. In a few days, there won't be any more Game of Thrones. I'm pretty sad about it, and things are really divided out there. I understand that everyone is processing the end in different ways and can see the valid criticism that some people are putting forward. At the same time, I find the negativity to be exhausting and unhealthy. I believe that no matter how Season 8 went, there were always going to be problems because the books aren't finished. It's a bad situation because people care about this story and these characters, and they're having to see things conclude without knowing exactly how things will play out on the pages of the books. It's the worst case scenario for everyone. Nobody wanted it to happen like that, I don't think. George R.R. Martin didn't want it to happen like that. HBO didn't want it to happen like that. And definitely Dan and Dave didn't want it to happen like that. So I could make a whole video about this, and maybe I will, but for now I want to get into what I'm interested in and move away from the negativity. Because remember, everyone deserves to have their own experience. Where we can all agree is that it sucks that the end is coming. So I recommend that you just have your own experience and watch it, feel it, process it how you have to, and don't let anyone else's opinion shape your own. So the pictures came out, or should I say picture, there's literally one, and it's Tyrion. So the first question I have is, what will happen with Tyrion? We know he let Jaime go in the last episode, knowing that it was the wrong thing to do, but hoping that everything would work out to his favor in the end. I actually liked the scene with Jaime and Tyrion. It was a good moment to have between these two characters. It reminded us of when Tyrion had been sentenced to death after Oberyn lost to the Mountain and Jaime released him. So yeah, this was a good character moment, but it's also definitely tied into Tyrion's ending. When you couple that with Daenerys telling him that the next time he fails her will be the last time, there's really no way that this can end well. I suspect that Tyrion's gonna have to do some maneuvering, but as the way things are now going into the episode, I think it's pretty safe to say that she will want to execute him, just like she did Varys, and we'll have to see what Tyrion does in light of that. What about Davos? He actually helped Tyrion by providing the boat for Jaime and Cersei to escape in. Personally, I tend to think that nothing is ever going to happen to Davos, but I could be wrong. He did play a part in this scheme. He is Jon's closest advisor at this point, but to me, he's still one of those characters who can't die. They need him after the dust settles to help put together a new government or whatever is going to happen there. So I tend to think that he'll be okay, but he may be implicated and there may be some drama around that. The next big question is one I talked about in my trailer breakdown. We see Arya. At the end of episode 5, it looked like she might be riding away and getting away from all the violence and death once and for all, but then we see her return in the trailer. So has she changed her ways? I think one of the best moments in episode 5 was the Hound and Arya's conversation, the way that we saw that he cared for her and that he gave her advice that she might actually follow because of their relationship. It was touching, it was exciting. I always wanted a twist for Arya where she got away from being a killer. So what are we supposed to think? I mean, I think we're supposed to think that she's going to kill Daenerys. I'll talk about that some more later. I think the answer to this question, though, really comes down to she's going to be conflicted. After she decided to leave and not kill Cersei, she saw all the real horror of war. She saw real pain and suffering. She tried to help others. So I think, yes, she has changed, but I think that there's a conflict coming where she's going to want to kill Daenerys and then she's going to have to make a decision. When we're talking about the Starks, it's important to bring up Bran, I guess, because he's such a confusing part of the story at this point. It's hard to say what's going on with him, but the thing that stood out in episode 5 related to Bran was that we did see that vision play out. We saw the dragon's shadow on King's Landing. This has led to some people asking in comments whether Bran knew what was going on before they went south. Based on those visions, I would say yes. He saw that stuff. He should know about it. It brings up another question of why didn't he do anything about it, but I don't think that's inconsistent from what we've seen him doing. From interviews I've read from the actor who plays Bran, he says that he's very careful with the information that he shares with other people. Like, he doesn't tell people what he knows because he doesn't want it to affect the outcomes of things on some level, but on another level, people could use that information to their advantage. So yes, to answer this question, I think Bran probably did know, but I'm not really sure if it's weird weird that he decided to let everyone go there anyways and let that play out how it did. Another big question I have is, will there be an epilogue? And I think the answer to this is also yes. People are devastated with Daenerys' turn, and we'll talk about that later. But it does, at this point, feel like we're really getting a lot of the bitter and not really anything that feels good in the ending that is going to make us feel that bittersweet feeling that George R. R. Martin has said so many times. I think that the epilogue is probably the best vehicle to give us that. I think we're going to need to see some things in the future to reinforce that whatever happens with the person sitting on the throne or the government getting put into place, we're going to have to see some of these characters that, like Sam and Gilly or Gendry or something like that, where we see them and things have gotten better as a result of what happened with all this pain and suffering. That leads into the next question, which is, who was Varys sending letters to? I've been seeing this in my comments a lot. Well, we can put together that Varys was trying to poison Daenerys. We saw his little bird. He was telling her to go back, but Daenerys wasn't eating. So he'd probably want to send out letters to the Lords of Westeros, because if she dies, then that's already out there. And if she finds out what he's doing and executes him like she did, that would still be out there. So the lords that we know of right now, it's a pretty small amount. We know Yara rules in the Iron Islands. We know Robin Arryn is still in the Vale, and we know that there's a mysterious new prince in Dorne. And that brings up the next question, who will rule in these areas after things are said and done? So I didn't mention the North in the last question because obviously they already know about Jon's heritage. But that means we have the Reach. No one's currently at Highgarden. We have the Riverlands. There's no one there that we know of. We do know that Gendry is in the Stormlands, or he is the Lord of Storm's End, at least at this point. And then we have the Westerlands, which Tyrion would probably be in line to be the Lord of Casterly Rock, since Jaime and Cersei both died. But it's really kind of hard to tell if this will play a part. Like I said, I think that we'll have to see the ones that we know, the named lords, come to King's Landing before things wrap up. Daenerys would call them, or if something happens to Daenerys, then they'll probably have to come for some kind of transition anyways, so they're all going to be headed there. That leaves room for us to find out who's going to go where. Of course, Bronn could play a part in that if he gets Highgarden from Tyrion. That's pretty up in the air, though. The Riverlands could end up going to Edmure Tully, who we haven't seen for a while. If it's not him, I don't know who it would be. That would leave the Westerlands, and I don't know. I think that just hinges on what happens with Tyrion. Highgarden is a little bit up in the air, too, because Sam could be a candidate for the Reach, since that's where his family's from. But based on what we've seen, I don't see Bronn going away quietly. I think he would push to have that go through at the very least, so there may be a bit of controversy there. And everything obviously relates to Daenerys and what's going to happen. A lot of the discussion I see around Daenerys was if she needed to become a villain. I think that's an easy question to answer for me. Yes, she had to become a villain because it's essential to the endgame. There's another question of, did they have to go as far as they did and have her kill civilians? This is a lot more complicated. I think it's definitely in Daenerys' wheelhouse to do this. I think it's historically things like this happen at times of war as well. I want to say that they could have set it up better, but there really isn't a better way that it could be set up. Is there a good way to set up an unforgivable act where lots of innocent people die? I mean, if the point is that she has to become a villain because that's how the story ends, I think that's what people really have a problem with. They have a different idea of how they wanted her story to end. Yeah, it could be more nuanced. It will be in the books. There'll be point of view chapters, but I just don't think there's any other way you could wrap up the story without her going to the dark side. And I think it has to be clear that this fire and blood side of her is incompatible with being a ruler. If there's any chance it can be justified away, like what she does, if she just kills Cersei, if she just destroyed the Red Keep, then I think when she has to die later on, it doesn't really hold up. I think there would be a lot of people who would be equally unhappy that she was killed because they would be able to work out a reason of why what she did was justified based on what they know and like about the character. So that being said, what will her plan be? I think that she'll try to exert her power. There's a chance that she may realize the horror of what she's done. Like, I think it's a heat of the moment thing. And I doubt that we would see her in the next episode talking about how cool it was, what she did. I mean, I think she's going to justify it, but I hope that we'll see some internal conflict there of, I had to do this, but how do I live with who I've become by doing it? And all of it leads to the question of who is going to kill Daenerys, because with one episode left, I don't think there's any chance. And this has been my position for a long time, that you can't put the only person that has the nuclear bombs on the throne and make it a good story. It just doesn't end right that way, for me anyway. So they're setting it up. They had 4 people in the trailer other than soldiers. They had Arya, they had Jon, they had Davos, and they had Tyrion. Tyrion has killed before, but I think it's more in line for his character to try to find a different way to get out of the situation he's in. I think he's the least likely. Davos is also unlikely. That would be a twist if Davos was the one that killed Daenerys at the end, but I don't think that's where they're going. And that leaves the 2 kids from Winterfell. We got Jon Snow and we got Arya. And I like Arya's coming back to humanity so much. I'm really going to be disappointed if it's her. With the way we've seen things play out, there's obviously going to be the end of the Targaryens and the rise, at least, of something out of the north. So I feel like if Arya kills Daenerys, it's really a bummer ending to her story. And that only really leaves Jon. That probably has the most impact. That's probably the hardest to watch. He's probably the character that would be affected by it the most. I do believe he's going to end up in the north after all he's been through, and outside of some political maneuvering from Sansa working with the other lords to come in and take Daenerys out, after episode 5, everything is really pointing towards Jon being the one to swing the sword. I don't think that Daenerys' turn is the third shocking thing that we've all been wondering about. The thing that George R. R. Martin told the showrunners a few years ago. I think that they probably always would have known that Daenerys was going to go in this direction. I think since George was more involved early on, he would have explained this to them so that they could set things up properly. So this feels a lot more like it could be that third shocking twist. I've never thought that Jon would sit on the throne either. I thought that seemed pretty unsatisfying as an ending. So if it ends this way, it kind of makes sense. It kind of puts Jon in a place where he provides the balance. We know that doing the right thing is a big part of his character. He got that from Ned. So I think him doing something that he would never do otherwise but has to do for the greater good makes a lot of sense for him. So let me know what you think. And that brings us to the last question, and that's, what about Drogon? Drogon's not easy to take out. There's some logistical issues with that. If Daenerys dies, what happens to Drogon? There's always been this idea of a balance of ice and fire, and the White Walkers are gone. The magic has receded on the ice side of things. The characters that are essential to the story that were followers of the Lord of Light and who were bringing people back from the dead and doing actual magic are gone. Where does that leave Drogon? I mean, I always thought that they wouldn't make it out, but now that they've been through the battle, it's a little bit confusing as to what will happen with him. I guess he could just go away. There wouldn't be any reason for him to hang around, but that's kind of unsatisfying. He could come back at any time and just burn random people. So let me know what you think about that, because I really don't have an idea of how that is going to play out. And that's about it for today, guys. I'm interested to see what you guys think about all these questions. I will have some more videos coming soon this week leading up. I had some family stuff going on back in the US yesterday, so that made it so that I couldn't make a video. But I should be back and making more with no problems going forward. Let me know how you're feeling, what you want to see, how you think things are going to play out. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.